From the Far East to the Great West, the podcast that celebrates the red-headed stepchild of the kung fu genre, Bruceploitation. Welcome to the Clones Cast.
Welcome to the Clones Cast.
Welcome.
We're back, baby.
There you are, and we're back in living color even.
Yeah, back very differently. And, it's funny, just now I'm like, that's the end of our intro. I still have to come up with that, so we'll see. If everybody hates my intro, I want anybody who listens to us that's a good video artist to reach out to me, and we'll make a much better one together. And that'll be, we'll credit you, but yeah, hook us up. Because we're
Such an open artist. It's good.
We're here to talk about the Lama Avenger. What year is that?
Yeah, 79.
79. Okay.
Yes.
And who are our characters? Who do we have in this? Who's important?
We've got we've got our first and foremost Bruce Lee, or Ho Zhang Dao, as we also like to call him. And this is one of those movies where you can make that argument that we've talked about, whether it's Bruceploitation simply by the fact that he's in it, but there's some other trailing elements that kind of push it into that field, but we can talk about that. But we've got Bruce Lee, and then we've got Chien who plays his buddy.
Okay, that's Choi. I love Choi.
Yes, yeah. Great guy.
He's so cool.
He's been around, man. Enter the Dragon. He's actually the guy flipping around in Enter the Dragon when you go to the feast and you see this one.
Are you
guy
kidding me?
Going that.
Yeah,
that's him. He's there, and he did the fight choreography on a film I love called Death Duel of Kung Fu with John Liu and Don's in it, Don Wang Dao, and he's done like a Dance of the Drunken Mantis as an action. But he was in Enter the Fat Dragon as well as Enter the Dragon.
I saw that. I actually recognized
Man with
him
Golden
from
Gun.
a bunch of stuff. I recognized him right away. I'm like, I know this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just I guess he was given an opportunity in this film to be a bigger character. He's almost as big as Bruce himself.
Yeah, he'd been around for a while, like we just mentioned. Even after this, he would go on and still do like sort of extra stunt work. But this was kind of his. He'd done some action choreography, but this was kind of early on for him. Maybe 4 or 5 films before this, he'd done some. So
gotcha. Anybody else, like director wise, or?
The director, this guy Wong Wak Kei, I think I don't know the pronunciation, but he hadn't done much kung fu films. He's probably only did a dozen films, and then this was somewhere right in the middle. So he'd done like 4 or 5 before this, and then a number afterwards, but nothing really notable in terms of the martial arts stuff. So, but I think what for me, I think is what we're talking about before we start is the film company, Eternal Film, which is one of my favorite of the independent film companies. They've done a couple of the films we've done. They had Bruce Lee, the Man, the Myth, Soul Brothers of Kung Fu. They did Dynamo, and then they went on and did a bunch of Billy Chong movies. But what I kind of like about them, and it's emblematic in this film, is how they love taking, particularly Bruce when he's in it, but it's true of other, is making him the proletariat, right? He's the guy that's working hard and then gets this moment of going up into stardom in a way. And that was played out more in Dynamo, where there was a beginning, a middle, and end to it. Here he it's like a mini version of Dynamo where he becomes the actor at one point, and it's sort of just a moment, and they utilize it a little bit. But it's almost like you could see that was the mini version, the Super 8 version of Dynamo, the digest version.
Totally.
But it's true of Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, with Carl Scott and Lo Meng, and they they come over the boat, they're the boat people, and they come over and again, like this idea here where you've got Chien and Bruce, they sort of separate in a way, not to the degree that Lo Meng and Bruce did in Soul Brothers, where one became a gangster and the other sort of the upright movie star citizen. Here, there's just the separation in lifestyle, but they don't really kind of trail apart with values. But anyways, I this was all to point out that the Eternal Film Company seemed to like that aspect with Bruce and his movies that he did for them. And I liked it. I think that's one of the things that endears me with. In fact, this movie has one of my favorite posters. I have the original Hong Kong
No
poster
kidding.
of this, and it's like one of my it's one of my favorite posters that I own. So,
Huh.
but I guess that's and he's just on the last note, the Chien did the action directing, so all the fight choreography is by him too.
I'm noted multiple times just how Jackie Chan he was, right? He had that same training of. There's some really funny scenes. In fact, it's really funny in a lot of the scenes in this. It's like he'll be doing kind of the same acrobatics, but he just keeps getting hit in the nuts and stuff. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right, so we start with that acrobatics, right? There's this big acrobat show going on, and
Making opera,
yeah, there's some hecklers in the audience. So Bruce and Choi, kick their ass, and there's this big battle. They get fired. A really funny,
and it's a good distinction in there too. Just real quick, is how they don't go too extreme with it, but there's a little distinction in their fighting styles. Aside from their probably just their natural abilities, they do give Chien that sort of like you said, a little bit more of the Jackie Chan acrobatic. Sort of let me play with you kind of thing, where Bruce is a little Wing Chun straight up, I'm going to fight. He's got a loose sort of feel to him, but he's, it's definitely, there's a difference there. And with the whole thing, I want to kill a snake, and he's like messing around, pulls the guy's teeth out and does all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
It was
in a fun start, right away, like I'm like at first, like, is this going to be another one of those like really dumb ones? And it isn't actually. It's like they were trying to set the stage right away at how well trained they were, and yeah. So we have this big battle, and it's funny because we then move straight to that big house fight, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, it's barely a house. It's just
right.
It's like pieces of wood,
which goes up.
Yeah,
it's exactly plywood house.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is funny because that house is, when I saw this movie when I was really young, and I didn't see it for probably a decade or two, almost for a long period of time. But that was always the part that I remembered about it, was the house.
Yeah.
I always remembered this house that gets destroyed. It looks like it was made of paper mache. And that guy, Tai-San, actually, was the guy from the opera. He was in... he was the one that fought Sammo Hung in Game of Death, So, but when they come back and they're fighting him in that house and they totally destroy it in this, completely over the top way,
at first he's like,
it struck me. Yeah, right, exactly. And that, to me, again, plays into that whole thing we were talking about, the proletariat. Like they're destitute. They're like, their house, like you said, is the 4 walls that they probably constructed that morning.
If you've ever been poor, it's a 1-room place with $20 in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But they're so good-hearted about it when it's destroyed too. They're just, well, we got a house. Well, let's go save my aunts. It's just like, it's the house.
Totally. So then I'm thinking, like, what's the aunt's gonna be like? But that's hilarious. So they do. They go to the aunt's place, and instead we get these perverts ogling the cousin. Oh my god! I thought it was gonna be aunt at first, but it's kind of funny. So what we have is actually. The evil guy. The plot of this is pretty much the typical, I want your property, so I'm gonna
famous, yes.
Yeah. But so we have like the guy who's like trying to convince her to sell. He's like the main guy getting all the other dudes who knows where they came from, this little village. Like they know all of them, but they're all like looking in a window at a girl showering. So first Choi goes up and he looks in the window and he's like, oh, dude, you got to get up here and look in that. So our Bruce comes up and he looks in and he's like, oh, shit. Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, start slapping him around.
Yeah.
And there was that funny moment afterwards when they're sitting at the table and the cousin comes now and clothed, and the guy that was just looking, like, kind of Bruce stands up in front and goes, you like what you look? You had enough, or whatever it was he says.
You seen enough? Right. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, so you said it. The next scene, the creepy dude is actually like hanging out in the house. Like I'm thinking they should just kick his ass, but for some reason he's just like there. I'm thinking, is he a family friend or whatever? And then finally he comes out with his plot to get rid of, like, to buy the house and blah blah blah. It was weird.
Yeah,
it was weird. All right.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a bunch of elements of that in this, where they're sort of like loosely handling plot elements to move it along,
Yeah, and if you think about it, the house buying element, it starts kind of it starts there and it gets resolved, and that's not the end of the movie. Then we're gonna get there, but it's not the end of the movie. Yeah. So next up we get to meet John finally. He's on vacation.
Yeah.
The Westerner. Which was weird in itself because I thought we were introducing the Bob Wall character, and I'm thinking as this goes,
Bob Walker.
right? Yeah, I thought he's going to be the tough white guy that comes and defeats the Chinese, and then the Chinese defeat him. But no, the other title of this movie is The Three Avengers, and in that, he becomes part of our crew.
Yeah, and it's again like Soul Brothers, where you've got Carl Scott who comes in,
right,
and play, and they have this and Western, kind of like the Chinese stuntman, John Ladasky, where he comes in. They give him a little props, they're still going to be the Westerner, they're still going to be this sort of like, he's going to get his, towards the end, get his sort of butt handed to him for a while, where the two heroes take over. But he becomes a character in the story, which is cool,
I'm challenging. Who's the teacher? Hey, do you hear that? This idiot's challenging you. Yeah.
You're not too bad.
Well, now, you had enough yet? I'll take you next, huh?
Yeah, because he hasn't switched sides yet. He's still with I'll call him Lama's student because I don't know his name, but this is the part where they just picked him up. They're heading up the hill to this place he owns, and there's like a broken down hearse, which, by the way, like watching this, it's not a traditional hearse. This is some cool, weird Asian hearse thing. It looks more like a travel van.
Yeah, like a van. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they're trying to move the hearse from one to the other, and Shazam fight instead, which I thought was really weird. They're just like, it's really kind of cruel.
The whole thing with moving the trying to get the cop. Well, I think that was the intention because we were setting up one of our main bad guys. You know?
And why John left his friend and became,
Yeah, and they're showing him in the car. He's kind of like, what's going on? He's not taking some aggressive stance in all of this. He's sort of, so they do set him up. I couldn't even, it was almost, I was almost not sure if that was a later day add in, like if initially when they shot this, if his first entrance was where he shows up to fight them, because that's where he shifts in his characterization. Like he almost comes from being this sort of nice, hey, how are you kind of guy, to this initially this very tough guy that comes in and wants to challenge them. So I wasn't sure if maybe they later went, wow, let's shoot an opening for him, give him a little bit of some substance or something, because I almost felt like when he comes in, fights them, in a few minutes down the line, that was maybe the initial introduction to
right. I thought for sure. I thought actually he would become like some sort of traitor, which I'm glad it didn't happen. Yeah.
Right. Mm.
All right. Well, finally, I guess Bruce starts teaching Kung Fu. His teacher's like, dude, it's time for you to become, student becomes the teacher.
Yeah. Which part is this?
This is right where Bruce starts teaching Kung Fu to all the locals in the village,
Yeah.
This is right when John comes, challenges Bruce, loses, worships Bruce, and then we get really hilarious montage of Choi. Just kind of, at first I thought he was taking advantage of him, but then I realized he wasn't exactly taking advantage of him. He was really taking on the teacher role, which means you do for me. And I mean, he's doing it kind of, I need you to go wash the clothes, and, it's all the mean stuff. I imagine to the Chinese, it was very funny to watch this Westerner.
The Westerner, being the lowly. And that moment that kind of follows that, where they're doing the exercises, and he's like, oh, I could do that. And he's like, well, if you do all about, that whole sequence there, that is the Chinese poster, which if you look it up, you can find it online. But it's utilizing that moment with the three of them. And it's also where the poster itself gives us what I was talking about alluding to earlier, the Bruce exploitation angle, because on the poster of the Chinese version, Bruce Lee is dressed in the yellow and black tracksuit.
Yeah.
And it's all the three of them on the poster, but that's kind of where that's the moment they use on the actual advertising.
Yeah. That part in particular was so cool. I mean, you think about Choi. Yes, you said his real name. He has that much strength. Like, that is like planking to an extreme. He's just lifting his legs.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. I was like, at that point, it was funny because then again, it just showed how pompous the Westerner is to come in and be like, I'm the best. And it didn't matter, you know, he couldn't do what these guys who had been trained to do. And that's sort of a theme of this film, is it's about your training. Like, even later on, we'll get to it, but when Choi's wounded, it's more about just training more and not about, you know, being a loser.
Right. Yeah. And there is a lot of this, which again was true of Dynamo to some degree. I mean, actually, and Soul Brothers even to maybe a lesser degree, but you have the fights up to this point, for the most part, have been very playful and silly, and they're always not taking them with any, like, they're like being nice to their opponents afterwards, like going, come back anytime, you're welcome, or whatever. You know, there's plenty of this back and forth stuff going on, which I think was intentional. So then at the end, when Choi San comes in, that they kills the master, etc., it becomes a serious fight, you know, and kind of gives it a little bit of separation from the rest of the fights.
Totally. Yeah. Well, next up, what we actually have is funny because we took advantage of John for so long that now they're going to this disco where somebody like Choi has never been before, and he has to be the idiot, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. At first, he's trying to play it up like I'll pay, but you pay. It's very funny. It's a really good sequence. The funniest part was we do this disco battle, and he just does his Jackie Chan ridiculousness, and everyone's just like,
Looks like you're practicing his kung fu or something.
Great. Well, you got to remember, this was just after probably being shot around the time that Saturday Night Fever was being a huge hit. You know, it came out in '77, so this was probably shot in '78 sometime.
Yeah.
You know, so it had just been within that
Right
period
after.
of time. So it's like, let's include the John Travolta scene in this.
I love that. Yeah, and it was funny. It's actually like using your martial arts. You don't have to be a trained dancer. You dance with the spirit of martial arts.
Yeah, which I think Van Damme did 10 years later in Bloodsport. I think there was a scene, or no, Kickboxer, I think it was.
Oh my God, that's the worst dance scene of all time. I can't do it. But it's fucking terrible. Okay, well, cool. Yeah, fake pay thing. Oh yeah, how teacher's gonna get the first choice of ladies. That actually did work out for him.
Yes.
Yeah, so they finally go visit the old teacher, and this brings us kind of back to Earth after the disco thing. And then comes a very funny scene, and it was they're initiating John to eating tail.
Right.
Which was, he's like, what is this? He ate a whole bowl. And I don't know how anybody could be freaked out by eating snake. It's just not that freaky of a thing, but we know. We've watched so many of these. Snakes are a thing. I was just looking at Black Dragon's Revenge and watching old Frenchie die from the evil snake lady.
Oh, right. Yeah, they love snakes. Well, in the beginning, remember, that's his line. I love killing snakes. You know, so started off early.
Fucking snakes. Yeah. Cool. Snake soup.
Don't you know? Snake, you fool! He doesn't appreciate good food. One enjoys it and the other vomits.
Oh, wasting the food.
Here, look at that. Well, all right, let's split it.
So that's what happened. Yeah. So he eats snake soup. He goes to vomit. In comes real estate man. I don't know what else to call him. The bad guy. And he's like, "You've abandoned us." Blah blah blah. And we get a nice, pretty great battle. It was a good one. He's like, "This is my new teacher." And then Choi. This is like when he really. I mean, aside from the first doing the opera, this is the first time he's really just flipping like a maniac and doing cool.
Yeah.
It's good.
One of my favorite roles of his was playing the grandfather in a movie called The Thundering Mantis. It's a kung fu movie, independent kung fu movie, but it's such a good movie, and he plays the grandfather in this. So you'll recognize him. He's got the full on, beard and white hair and stuff, but he's still that
Choi
face,
does?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta check that out. Yeah. All right. So the old teacher comes to save the day at this point. We find out about the immeasurable llama dude that we're actually going against, which we'll see later. We call him Baldy when the time comes.
Baldy. Lee Hoi Sang. Between him and Bolo, they probably covered every movie in Hong Kong.
Yeah, no, I recognized him right away. He's really famous, right?
Tower of Death. Yeah. He was in Enter the Three Dragons. In fact, Tower of Death, he was one of the co-martial arts instructors, choreographers on that. And,
he looks so
we did
good.
A bunch of his movies.
He's so beautiful. He really is.
Yeah.
He's just so Mr. Clean, and the way he grabs the guy's neck to kill him.
Yes, then Lam Cow. That's Lam Cow, the master who, if you ever look up his resume, I mean, he's been working since the late 40s, and this was, I think he just passed away like 10 years ago or something. But he had definitely the longest resume of anybody on that movie for sure.
I love that. Yeah, he's really cool. We'll get to him. We find out about the llama dude. We have a knife fight. This is the first time all three of our guys fight. So we finally see the three Avengers, and Bruce, Choi, and John all fight against the bad guys.
Yes.
So they're so pissed. They're like, let's make up horrible rumors about Bruce and turn the whole village against him. It worked.
Yeah, the way the photographing and cutting out.
Oh my God, that was funny,
it was
right?
Full JFK, John F. Kennedy.
Pre-Photoshop, just like, all right, superimpose the pictures, like literally cutting it out. And these poor farm people, that's what I was thinking at the time. I'm like, they didn't get it. There was no sophistication to their, like, I believe the photo because it's a photo and I'm good.
Yeah.
It's weird. Well, then we get to the craziest fight. It's this invitation for them to go meet the llama and the llama student. But then on the way or whatever, we get this big road battle. And the road battle was dark because Choi gets, like, drugged by a chain and he's all bloody. And they break his leg in some shitty way. It was pretty freaking weird. Wild.
And considering how color coordinated it was, I mean, this whole movie is, but that particular scene, you look at the red car and the blue car and then the white car and then Bruce is in the yellow and he's in the red. It's like this whoever was the art director on this was like having some fun with the colors for sure.
I never thought about that, but yeah, I agree. And it was weird because I actually don't understand this part at all. So they try to kill our Bruce and they most def try to kill Choi, but somehow dragging Choi almost to his death, which is something we've seen in America happen. And it's like he has to go to jail for 6 months.
Right, when he was in I know that's one of those moments we were talking about earlier where there's a little bit of a like, well, let's just get through this. Let's get him in prison. This will work fine. It's like, I think it was more, he was caught in a fight. He's getting blamed for it. And so he's going to prison. But because this is where it sets up. And, clearly that's there's a little lazy with construction here of the narrative, but it all for that moment of montage where you're seeing him in prison and then Bruce becoming a star, and it's that cutting back and forth,
right.
forth,
and that was weird too, right? So it's like Choi goes to prison for 6 months exactly, and he's got the bum leg now, and you'd think when the police officer found him, he's like a bloody mess in the bushes. He pushes Bruce down the hill to save Bruce, which was,
to get him out of trouble, right?
So it's true, it actually worked. But then I think, the aunt's just like, well, that's it. I'm selling. It's over. And they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, that's it. So the plot's over. So then they're just like making it up. They're like, well, 6 months wasn't long enough for his crimes. I'm like, his crime was you guys tried to kill him. Like, this is where we go past and we get to master versus master and actual like martial arts revelries or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was just that moment of that, again, very similar to Soul Brothers, where we're kind of showing the two, what appears to be the separation of the two, and of course these two stay bonded through the rest of the movie. They never like lose track of each other or start fighting each other or whatever it is, but it does show how they've, again, I think this is that thing that Eternal was doing, which was that idea of the common man and the, and then the dreams being reached by one and the other, just staying the simpleton with the broken leg and the, good attitude.
Totally. Yeah, I put my note is Bruce becomes Bruce and Choi breaks rocks.
Bruce becomes, that's right.
Yeah, which is a ridiculous scene. I mean, it's straight out of like the 50s. He's got this big rock and he's just
chain
hammering
gang.
away. I love that. All right, well, Choi gets out. Bruce is now famous. And now we have a Betty.
Yeah, Betty. She's
the worst.
The Betty Ting Pei, right? That's what you're referencing, right?
I mean, that's what they did. They're like, all right, well, no, she goes everywhere with him. And she's like, I won't let you. It's like all the things we know, like about, Betty trying to kind of own this relationship or something.
Right. She's like, and like, what's her name from Dynamo? That's the woman behind the sort of, pulling him away from his roots and luring him in.
Where we're like walking through those cool like mountain trails, and he's just with a hot lady? Or is that a different one?
No, that was you were thinking of one of the. I think you're.
They attack him up there, right? They attack him up at the top of the hills, and he's I don't know. That was one I'll never forget. That love affair. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, Dynamo. There wasn't a love affair between the two of them, but
okay.
yes.
All right. Well, let's see. Yeah, I did think that was funny, escaping the police. I mean, the chain thing. I'd never seen that in another Bruceploitation film. I mean, they drug a man chained to the car, and you watch like the stream of blood in the road. That was dark. Yeah,
I don't know if Kung Fu Fever did. It's happened a couple of times, but you're right. I mean, it's maybe I can't think of specifically that. Maybe Return of the Tiger, which you didn't see, or there's a couple of darker ones that were done early on that may have evolved the gang. That element. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Especially for this one, which, like we said, it's been so playful up to this point, more or less, Yeah.
Well, all right. Yeah. So now we have that cool theater scene where Bruce's movie is playing.
Yeah, that is cool because they're filming in the theater and you're watching them on the screen. And,
yeah,
that's
good.
And then when you have this funny moment inside where the guy's complain, and he's like surrounded by all the cast members and stuff. But if you watch the scene and they go out and they're taking the pictures in the lobby, the posters they have up are Dynamo posters.
Oh,
the original,
I missed that.
It's the original Chinese poster for Dynamo. They, obviously because they made the movie, so they're like, well, let's put the posters up. And so Bruce is in front posing in front. It's great. It's a great moment.
He did one of those scenes, like right when Choi gets out. Like Choi wants to talk to him, but he's getting his picture taken. He does that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's example. Yeah. And I mean, it's subtle. You don't have to go hit it over the head, but maybe it's just there was an element of just creating some form of structure, so it's just not, mundane, same, throughout the movie. It's like it was a good way for them to sort of break apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we get Choi in his get back in shape montage. So he goes and talks to teacher. Teacher's like, your injury isn't a permanent thing. Like, that's all martial arts is training. Just train. So we get this really funny scene of him limping along, and then he'll do a little bit of jumping jacks. And, I don't know. He never quite got over it, but
damaged goods.
Yeah, poor bastard. Then we get to John came back, which is great. So actually, what happened is old teacher, gets murdered. And it was actually a pretty brutal scene. That's
the one with Lee Hoi saying,
Yeah, they won't show you. They won't show you who's fighting our teacher, but he's getting his ass kicked, and he eventually gets like straight out of a cartoon. They take like an old TV and smash it on his head. Note was teacher's dead by TV, but he wasn't. He's still alive, and
he for a little while anyway.
He kills him with the.
Maybe it was that metaphor for television and celebrity stardom kills our martial artists.
Yeah. Right. There's something
they could have been that smart.
When I saw that big TV, I'm just like, oh my god, it's like Chekhov's gun. It's like they're gonna use it.
Yeah, that's called, for those who don't know, that was an old tube TV before the flat screen.
Yeah, exactly. It was a thick TV. It was probably only like 13 inches, but it had the cabinet made it.
That was not easy to pick up with those tubes.
Yeah, exactly. That was awesome. All right, cool. So
that sets up our big finale, killing the master.
John's back, Choi's back. Betty Ting says, no way is Bruce coming. Bruce has signed contracts, and Bruce is not going to get involved in that. And then she goes in, and she's like, well, he's like, John was back. What's that about? She's like, I don't want to tell you, but your master was killed, and they're going for revenge. And he's like, that's all I ever do. I'm going for revenge right now. Yeah.
And he slaps her, too. Boy,
right.
He's like...
Right, was that surprising? I was like, wait a minute. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a straight... whap.
That was it.
God.
Put her in her place.
All right. Well, we get to... I'm just going to call him Baldy.
Okay, you can call him Baldy.
Our llama. What's his name?
Lee Hoi-san.
Baldy. So Baldy is working out with these like briefcase-looking things, doing his...
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
It was hilarious because I'm like, those are going to come in later. And they did. Baldy versus Choi and John. It was actually a pretty long the whole end of the movie. It's a full 25-minute fight, I think. And it's just...
Is that what it clocked? No, it wasn't a clocking. It was probably 10 minutes maybe, but...
It was a long time because it's all of them.
Yeah.
So it starts with Choi and John fighting.
3 of them, yeah.
And then they both get beat up. Eventually, Bruce jumps in. Then they go outside.
Yeah, and it's in that room for a long time. That red room.
Yeah.
Again, back to the intense colors that are in this movie. You know, they're in that red room. Actually, I was actually surprised they kept it in that room. I guess they had those props in there, so it was working for them. But
And they're all getting their asses kicked, until Choi finally grabs the sword and the weird shield, which is more like a hat. But it was once that, and then they actually spend a good 3 minutes trying to stop Baldy from getting to his briefcases to get.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of that martial arts that they're using, if you kind of are paying attention, sort of harkens back to the beginning when they're in the Peking opera. I'm pretty sure that was intentional. Like they went back to what they do in the beginning of the film in terms of just the techniques and some of the weapons and stuff.
Gotcha. But yeah. So really what it proved is our three Avengers couldn't actually beat him. It took round after round after round, plus weapons, to finally defeat the Llama King. It's true. Once he got cut a few times, his self-esteem came down a little bit, but then he got the briefcases, and actually it was just a funny scene, and it's almost dumb. It's like Bruce is like, try me now, and he does the briefcase through a tree, and then Bruce makes him turn his hand, so he has to remove his briefcase.
Now, you shouldn't get mad. It's not good for your health.
His briefcase.
What are those weapons?
I don't know what the name of them are, but you're right. They're used. I mean, I've seen them used a couple of times,
kidding.
but it's not very often. Yeah, they seem very awkward to me. Good training device maybe.
Like kettlebells or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, flat kettlebells.
They're heavy. Yeah, it's weird because they really are. I mean, if you're never gonna watch this, guys, I'll tell you, it's really just like it's like a yoga mat that's very solid and smaller, and I don't know. You just fight with those, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Well, Bruce came in, tried to save the day. Actually, it was a really funny ending sequence to this whole thing. It was like, I think it was actually John's like, so you're the best. And Bruce was like, I'm not the best. He was like, well, who's the best? And Choi's like, well, I'm the best. He's like, no, you're not the best either. He says, whoever won is the best.
Whoever won or something is the best. It's a weird moment. I'm not exactly sure how they're translating it from. It's sort of like, okay, I'm about confused now.
Yeah. It's like,
Huh? You were really good.
I wasn't the best.
Who was the best? Not you. Well, who then?
The one who won. He was best.
Whoever won, which means the three of them won, I guess. And
yes,
there we
that
are.
could be. Oh, there you go. That could be.
Llama Avenger.
Yeah, that was Lama Avenger. And again, it's like I said, it has. I feel it's got a very strong kinship with Soul Brothers, or Last Strike, as it was known in Hong Kong, and to some degree Dynamo. But
Did you ever see
what'd you think of it? Did you like it? What?
Yeah. First off, I'll answer you. I loved it. I think it's like you could tell everybody voted for it. Everybody wanted that to be our finale of the last season, even though it's our season opener. But that said, I thought it was really, really nice. But yeah, I was gonna ask. I don't remember.
Something about John. You said something.
Oh
about
yeah,
John.
John. Did we ever see John again?
You mean Michael, the actor? You mean you're saying? Did we ever see him again in another film? Is that what you were asking?
Is that his name, Michael?
Yeah, Michael's something. Sounds almost like my Winton or something. I can't remember exactly what
I
it is.
think you're
but,
right. I think it's Michael Winston.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think
Okay,
so,
so
yeah.
I don't think he ever did anything else. I think that was it. They probably, he was some guy that they probably found in Hong Kong who does martial arts. They pulled him in for. He didn't like Roy Horan or take the.
Right.
Or Carl Scott go off and do more films. He just sort of stuck with that one, and that was it.
He was fun.
But he hung in there. Yeah, he seemed like he was doing a good job, and he was a good fight, and it was good.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, I liked it. I thought the martial arts. It actually, I don't like these as much in terms of they're so everything is perfect, right? Like
These meaning what?
The martial arts. It's like it's so choreographed in such a specific way that it doesn't.
Oh, that style, huh?
Yeah, but it's
you mean where they're working the sort of Jackie Chan moves in with the sort of props and that kind of thing? Is that what you mean? Like it's done very.
No, I like that part. It's about when they're actually hands on each other. Like someone will grab and it's a perfect turn, grab shoulder, turn, grab wrist, turn. It's like. They're not actually trying to beat each other up. They're trying to dance. And
right. See, I see what you're saying. Where it's a little more less the sort of basher style, where it's a little more chaotic. Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
But that's true of a lot of these, and it's just something that for me, I keep watching and I keep watching, and sometimes I see something really amazing, but most of the time I really want to just see them hit each other.
Well, again, as an example, Thundering Mantis, that I think that kind of choreography is also very difficult to carry off because it is unrealistic in a sense, right? But it's also very traditional and can be. Like where Jackie does it, and he's like throwing in a lot of hits and like goofball comedy along with it. But you have to have people that really know what they're doing, because if you try faking those kind of moves and you just end up looking like you're, I think that can be a problem. And it's not exactly Bruce Lee's forte per se. That's not exactly his style, and I'm sure Michael probably was, probably wasn't, again, it being his only movie, it's not like he had a lot of practice. So, but you watch something again like Thundering Mantis and you watch it carried off in that, and you can't have a hard time complaining about it. That's for sure.
You watch Baldy in this, and he is perfect. You can see his strength, and you can see his skill, and it's just a whole other level once he steps in. Like everybody they fought prior to him, it was just like, well, whatever. It's like, yeah, I guess maybe like some of my problems come like during the car fight where Choi had been dragged. It's just a lot of like weird, I don't know. But once we get to the actual badass at the end, it hit itself home.
Yep. Well, I'm with you. I love this movie. I've always enjoyed it. It always stuck into my head ever since a kid when I saw it. And like, as I said, Eternal Films, I think, has put out some of the better little Godfather of Hong Kong. Some of the, when I say better, I don't always mean it's some elevated cinema or something. It's there, but for what we're watching in a kung fu film, I think they put out some of the better ones that have, in their attempts to create pathos, with the characters. And so this is definitely one of my favorites, underrated. I've actually tried to find a 35 millimeter print of it. Found a 16 millimeter once, but it was, when you get 16 millimeter, it's first off, it's not entirely a 235, so you don't get the full image, and then blowing it up, it's a little softer. We used a 16 millimeter print. If you watch the Pearl River's release of Dynamo, you look at the 35 millimeter print and you watch the 16 millimeter, you can see there's a softness to it. So it wasn't ideal, but I hope one day to find it, because I would love to see this film get, restored. And so keep my eyes peeled.
Why did they make why would there be a 16 millimeter? Was it that certain theaters in the world only had
Some
a
would run.
projector?
Yes, it was cheaper to do. It's cheaper. It uses up less real estate essentially. But also
Was the
a lot of
films
the
like
yeah, and plus a lot of the 16 millimeter, they would project them, but a lot of them were also used for television. Television were cropping them anyway, so it was like less work when they would use these TV prints. I like the Dynamo that we used, I think was a TV print, because even though it was about 177 16 by 9, something like that in terms of its widescreen, it was also edited, and it was cut in a way that would have been just shown, like it was like they cut out all the nudity and that kind of thing. So 16 millimeter prints are just were a lot cheaper to do and make. So they weren't as again, they weren't as usually you're showing 35 because it's a cleaner picture, but there are plenty of them made.
Yeah. Well, cool. Do you have any news for us?
Well, a few things. Number one, I think this guy Matthew and Michael have an audio commentary on the Basher Box release of Prodigal Boxer. Comes out April 13th. So I don't know when this comes out, this video, but April 13th, 2021 is the Basher Box that we put out for Pearl River, and Matthew and I did a commentary on it, which was a lot of fun doing that with you.
Such a great movie. It was so much fun. I love that.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad we did it. And so that's coming out or is out. So I'm happy about that. And we're now busy working on Duel of the Seven Tigers. And as a matter of fact, at the time of this recording with you, I should next week be interviewing one of our stars from Seven Tigers. We've already got a couple interviews from some of the actors in the movie. I'm trying to get as many as I can. With any luck, we're going to get some good interviews on that disc. I'm really hoping to stack that disc because I love that movie so much. So that's coming around. And I've had an opportunity to watch a couple of really cool HD scans of some great Dragon Lee movies recently that we managed to find, and so which will be, as at this point we know, I can say that I'm working with Severin, and we're planning on doing a release of a number of films, and we got a documentary. So, and I might even be talking to Carl Scott in the next couple of weeks from Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, and Bruce Lee the Man, the Myth, even though he's just sitting on the ground saying nothing. His first appearance.
What's he doing these days?
I don't know. I'm going to find out though. I'm going to find out.
I
don't think he's ever really been interviewed much before, so this will be kind of fun. And I'm going to talk to him a lot about Eternal because he worked for them so many times. I think everything he did was for them. So nice. I'll be kind of curious to hear about them.
I love it.
But that's my news.
Well, another thing you sent me, I think it's worth bringing up. Grayside did a cover of Candy's King of Kung Fu.
King of Kung Fu. They reached out to us over at the Bruceploitation Bible Facebook page, and nice. I think they just were like, "Hey, you want to share this?" And I took a look at it, and I loved that they did it, and I think it's great. And so I thought, well, let's put it on here. It's since we got a little music video, I just thought it'd be great to show.
I love it. Well, our first live one, but we'll send you out to that, and we'll put the whole video in right here.
He sure knows how to fight for his defense. In starting, all his limbs are tense. Fire glistens in his eyes, he strikes terror with his cries. Oh, he's the King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. Let him show what he can do. He's the King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. Let him show what he can do. He uses every human capability with a fingertip sensitivity. His Kung Fu courage set in motion is a massive dynamic explosion. Power fills his eyes as he strikes terror with his cries. Oh, he's the King of of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. Let him show what he can do. He's the King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. Let him show what he can do. People have carved him into what he is, made him a powerhouse that fights to live. His iron muscles threaten destruction. There's no fighter that can touch him. The king is now revealed. He's the real man of steel. Oh, he's the King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. King of Kung Fu. The greatest fighter the world ever knew. Ba 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 ba, Bruce Lee. Oh, you're the King of Kung Fu. Ba 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 ba, Bruce Lee. The greatest fighter the world